welcome to the This Is Metal show. I'm Jason J. Rock Houston, and my co-host is Tom Collier, the guitar player and principal songwriter for the New York-based hard rock band Held Hostage. And today, of course, our special guest is the lead singer of Riley's LA Guns, Kurt Frolich. Now, Kurt, that's a great place to start, if you don't mind. Of course, sadly, Steve passed away kind of unexpectedly late last year. Let me ask you, was that as unexpected as it was to the rest of us, or had you known he'd been battling some illnesses?
Yes, but Steve was a very private guy, so we really didn't know,
That's
you
honestly the
know.
one like we did not see coming.
Yeah, so it was a shock to,
Buddy,
it was
yeah.
a shock to us. Yeah.
And Steve was a great guy. I never met the man in person, but I had the pleasure of interviewing him once before, and just over the phone. And he was a super down to earth, nice guy. And anybody who knew him or that ever kind of had a similar encounter will tell you that about him. Now, I know you guys have done one gig since his passing. Has there been any decision on if the band's going to go forward? Of course, I know you guys just released a great new album, but any plans of what the future holds for you guys?
We're still taking it day by day and,
Uh,
cross any bridge that we get to. But, as of now, we have the blessing from Steve's family and they're, you know,
I mean,
so
I imagine, it's a hard thing. I mean, like anytime you lose a friend or a family member, I mean, when a family member dies, you don't go out and replace somebody. So I'm sure, it was unexpected. And it's kind of like, it's got to be hard. I know you've already done it the one time and you had a fill in drummer, but to look back there and not see him.
it was really hard. I got pretty choked up in the dressing room before the show because we clear the dressing room and we kind of have a little ritual that we do, as probably a lot of bands do before the show, and we all get together and sometimes we'll have a shot of whiskey or whatever,
Whatever, yeah.
whatever. And but we were friends too. So it's really like, and I always would, before we go on, I go, let's go have fun, you guys. Because it's play rock and roll for a living. It's fun.
Yeah,
Never mind, you get to do it with cool guys,
I'm sure having been on tour with other bands, there are a lot of bands that we're aware of that they don't have that camaraderie, or that friendship. A lot of these bands, that we grew up on can't stand being in the same room. It's like
Yes.
they just do it to make a buck. I
It's
mean,
just like
yeah,
It's just like any other job. If you're at a job and you hate the
yeah,
people you work with, it makes it a lot harder whether you're, working at a factory or in a rock and roll
or whatever.
band.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's like that we all got along and we enjoyed it and we enjoyed making music together. That obviously made it. But like you said about Steve, he never said a bad word about anybody.
yeah,
And even before I got in the band, when he reached out to me and he personally called me, I checked out about it, like because I didn't know a lot about him personally. Obviously, his music career I did, and everyone was said Steve's great guy. So I was
yeah,
like, okay, because I was hesitant to join it for
yeah.
obvious reasons that, I'm not
You're
the
really good.
original singer.
You know,
So
yeah, yeah. And real quick on that, it's funny because you were also at one point briefly in Faster Pussycat when there was two Faster Pussycats. So you've kind of got that experience.
yes, that
Yeah,
one was kind of pre-internet. So as you guys all know, with the internet, anyone can go on and spout their disgust about any
sure,
possible
sure.
thing they can think of. So but still, yeah, it's, when you, especially the singer, the voice of a band is the
Yeah,
voice of a band. So I get it. I'm a fan. I grew up on Faster Pussycat, LA Guns,
yeah,
and, all these 80s rock bands that I love. So I get it.
yeah,
People want to hear the original singer, but sometimes it's,
yeah,
not possible with certain projects or
for
whatever.
sure.
So
I'm going to throw it to my partner Tom. From one songwriter to another. I know you must have some questions for Kurt. You want to ask Tom?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I had the pleasure of meeting Steve, and he's probably the only guy that I didn't play with. If you looked up my history, I played with almost everybody out there, toured with him and stuff. And he was a great guy. And I know your ritual because we have one in my band Held Hostage. Before we go on stage, we go out there right before we hit, we fist bump, we say, we're going to kick the shit out of this place, guys.
yeah.
And, you psych yourselves up. So I know when you said that, I was laughing. I was going, that I love that when I hear somebody say that. And also with the songwriting and stuff like that. Who wrote the new album? Were you involved in the songwriting of the new album?
Yes, we all how we did it is because, you know, nowadays for a band to go in the studio, which we
Yeah.
did for both our albums, is a
Yep.
stretch. A lot of bands just remotely fly their files in and
Sure.
then they put it together in the studio. But we've had the luxury where Golden Robot, you know, we all flew to LA. Steve
Mhm.
lived in LA at the time. And so we all would fly in. But beforehand, we all sent our ideas in. So we would stockpile like, you know, a bunch of songs and then we'd pick the best ones that we thought and then we'd work on them from there. So everyone brought stuff to the table, which I think is great and it gives a broader spectrum of sound to the album, I think, than instead of somebody going, learn these parts, learn this, learn that, and that's not how we did any of it.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
we went into the studio, we had all the songs picked and ready. And even at the end, we'd be like, let's put this one in. I think this one's better. We got to rehearse for a couple days. And so, and even in the studio, when I was doing a vocal part or something, they'd be like, they talk to me through the talk back and they'd be like, why don't you try this vocal? And I'd go, okay. And I would try, and I think that really broadened the sound and the flavor of the album. So I think that definitely had something to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
with
let's
it, that
talk
everyone
about some
having
of
their
these
input.
songs. One of my favorite songs off the album is While I'm Away. I mean, what I love about it so much is it's such a different sound for this band. It's not the typical sound, and yet I love it because it's so different.
That's a song I wrote quite a while ago,
Wow.
and Steve loved it. He called it swampy blues,
I
like
only I called it
swampy.
kind of, it's funny because I was thinking how to describe it, and I was thinking, I don't know if this is a good sleazy blues.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Steve always called it swampy, which I thought was kind of like,
Bumpy
oh
blues.
yeah, okay, I get it. It's kind of, he goes, because we were going to bring the tempo up a bit in it. And Steve was like, no, man, let's keep the tempo where it is. It's
And of course,
swampy.
it's
It's
a new
kind of
song,
Keith
but
Richards vibe.
I'm thinking years ahead. I'm like, this is a future like what will be considered a classic song, on classic hard rock radio.
And one thing about that song in the original version that I wrote, there was piano in it. And, the guys piped up and goes, we should get Dizzy Reed to play piano on this.
Oh wow, okay,
So
yeah.
they called him up and all that piano on there, that's Dizzy Reed from Guns N' Roses playing piano on it.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet Summer Girl. That's of course. I guess I don't know if it's fair to call it a power ballad, but this was around. This kind of equivalent of you know, uh, the Ballad of Jane and stuff like that was released back in the '80s and stuff. But I love it.
Oh, thank you.
Is
Yeah,
that another one of your songs, Kurt? Because
that's
I
one of
know.
my that's one of my tunes. It's got my flavor on it kind of. But Kelly loved the song. He's like, "Man, we got to record this song because he wrote the majority of Ballad of Jane." So,
Sweet Summer
you
Girl.
know,
Now, let me ask you: is that about anybody in particular? I also noticed in parentheses it's Florida. Is that because Florida is where you're from?
yeah, well, yeah, I've been in Florida for the last 8 years and yeah, I wrote it about my girls here,
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
my
Um,
daughter and my wife.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I know you also, of course, the latest Kurt Frolich single, I don't want it. That's coming off, I guess, your upcoming solo album, which is also going to be released on Robot Records. What else can you tell us? Like, do you guys have a release date for that yet? Or
We're gonna do probably another single and the album will be out this year.
okay.
But yeah, I'm pretty happy that the first single, people are digging it. So
It's kind
I'm,
of like modern time. I mean, like all this stuff with this division and the politics. I mean, there's one line in there that kind of caught my ear. I don't want your politics, and I get it because I think it's all right for people to have be on the opposite side of one another and be friends, but there's so much division that people don't want to even get into those discussions.
yeah, you got it, man. I'm sure a lot of people are sick of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's kind of where that comes from. And like, man, politics are, it's something you can't even bring up in conversation with common people now because it turns into like,
It's a joke. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm like,
And
yeah,
so with the solo album, let me ask you, like, it's pretty much recorded. I don't know how many songs are going to be on there. You picked out the songs.
yeah, it's all been recorded. And June, who mixed, he mixed the LA Guns records. He mixed this album too. and he's
And
great. He's worked with a lot of big artists, so I've learned a lot from him, and I really trust him. So
what's it like to do a solo album in the sense that, I mean, probably this is one of the first times in your career where you've got total control. You don't have to ask somebody, hey, do you think this fits the sound of the band, or do you think this is, you can do
yeah,
it. Yeah.
I've always worked with a partner or several partners where you can bounce stuff off each other. But this album, I played with Marky Ramone on guitar for a little while. So, and I learned a lot from Marky from the Ramones. And I'm such a punk rock kid. Like
Yeah.
when I was in middle school and high school, I just loved the Ramones, the Clash, the Dead Kennedys,
I
the
can hear that.
Misfits.
And I don't want it. It's kind of got a little bit of an edge to it.
Yeah, it's very it has a Ramon sense to it. Like that's where it came from my head, where it's just like catchy, simple songs
Yeah.
that have kind of, that have that kind of attitude. And that's
Yeah.
why the album is named 1977, because it kind of comes from the roots of the 1970s, late 70s, early 80s kind of punk rock vibe.
Is that kind of around the time you were born, or just you're into the music from that time?
That's kind of what I grew up on. I'm a kid of the I was born in the 70s, so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty cool. Now let me ask you, Kurt. Like, would you say the different kind of, do all the sounds on the solo, do they sound like they belong in the same album? Do they sound alike, or are there different sounds throughout the album?
I think they're pretty cohesive. It's a pretty cohesive album of that vein of straight ahead rock and roll. There's not like a power ballad on it or anything. So
Now, is this a true solo album in the sense that you play everything, or do you have other musicians come?
no, I did everything myself.
And so that's pretty neat that you have that capability. I mean, like, I don't know how good of a drummer you are, but that's pretty cool that you can play more than one instrument. Because when you do a project like this, not only can you do it, but I think even when you record with the band and that you have a better understanding of what everybody else is doing.
I like having the different flavors if I had a different bass player, but a lot of it came out of convenience because it came out of kind of the birth of it came out of kind of COVID,
Uh,
where at the end of COVID, and I just sat in my studio and wrote songs, and then I started recording, and I was like, hey, this is more than just kind of like passing time during COVID locked in your house, you know what I mean? So and then I started writing songs, and I sent them off to Mark from Golden Robot, and he was like, "Sounds like a single." I was like, "Oh, cool, okay."
I see
So then I
T-Bird in
kind
the
of put more
background
into
there.
it.
They're one of my favorite bands.
Oh
They,
yeah,
they,
Dream
hard
Police
rock,
album
pop.
right
They can
there.
do a little bit of everything. They got a little punk to what they do. Especially if you go back
That
to the very
that's
first
Pete
album.
Townsend. That's a picture of Pete Townsend up there
I
with
love
his.
him. Windmill and all that. Yeah, yeah.
And of course Iron Maiden right
Yeah.
there.
Hey, if you're a Who fan, let me tell you, they just released it. It's an old. They had it on DVD a couple of years ago, but they released a CD version of the Who in '82 at Shea Stadium. It just
Oh
came out.
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, I got to check that out. I'm a huge Who fan.
Yeah, yeah.
When I started playing guitar, the first songs I learned were The Who's greatest hits and Creedence Clearwater Revival's
Hey,
greatest
that's all
hits.
you need. I mean, that's kind of the soundtrack to how many of our lives. I mean, as far as Pete Townsend as a songwriter, I mean, how many of
Yeah.
the songs have we heard on TV shows and in the movies, huh?
Yeah. I've seen Tommy. Like when I go to Tommy, I'm like
Okay, yeah, you're there.
emotionally taken over, you know. We're gonna go see it in New York, me and the family. We're gonna go see it in
Yeah.
New York. It's open again in March, I think, in on Broadway. So we're gonna go see
Oh,
it.
that's cool. Yeah, the Who is kind of on their way out. It's funny as we sit here and talk. Roger Daltrey just turned 80 years old the other day, and he's still doing it. And and from what I understand, the Who's been losing money like on tour, if you can believe that. And
Really?
and so they're probably going to call it a day because of that.
It's a lot of bands say that, man. It's like it's too expensive to tour, and it's like,
Losing money.
you know, it's not even doing LA Guns. It's like
Yeah.
you don't make a lot of money. We just do it because we love it, you
I
know?
heard, I heard Roger talking about, like, in an interview. He goes, and if we do, we're probably just going to play in Europe, where we live, because it's too much to bring it over around the world.
I'm glad I got to see the Quadrophenia tour they did then. That's a lot. That's the only time I saw them. So
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you, have you always been a singer, or like a lot of people, did you start out playing the guitar and kind of out of necessity become a singer?
exactly, that's exactly what happened. I went to, I started playing guitar when I was about 15, 16.
Yeah.
And then I finished high school and I was like, Peter Thorne was my teacher. Do you know who Peter Thorne is?
Check
He's
this.
an online guy. He played with
Heard the name. Yeah, I've heard
he,
the name.
he played he was a hired guy. He's played with everybody, but he's a gear guy and he's an amazing guitar player. Anyway, uh, I took lessons from him and then I finished high school and I was like, what am I going to do? So I went to music college. And then I auditioned for like a rock band
Hmm.
and I auditioned with Yankee Bros, I remember.
Oh wow, I heard them. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and they're like, you got the gig. So then when I was 18, I went out on the road and started
Wow, wow.
playing in a band. And that was and then wrote original songs and I wanted to get a singer. And I'm like, I couldn't find anybody. So I was like, I'll just do it myself. So
Now,
that's when I
when
started singing.
people are telling you, you're a good singer, how surprised were you, or did you always think you had the talent? Because I mean, some people like be a good singer, really. Like, look at the career you've had.
I started like an Ace Frehley singer, I was a huge Ace Frehley fan. So, I'm not a fancy singer, but I'm not
You get
like
the job done, right? It pays the bills, right? So,
I just, the guys the guys I still look up to are like David Lee Roth and John Lennon and guys,
like
they're not
David Lee
like a
Roth, let's
Steve
be honest,
Perry.
he's not the world's greatest singer, but I love the way he sings. I love his nonsensical lyrics. Sometimes, you don't really know what he's talking about, but it doesn't matter.
It's just, you create your own style and your
Yeah,
own sound.
I'll tell you
It's
a funny
like,
story about my partner Tom. Okay, on his last two albums, he had Ripper Owens sing on the albums, but Ripper's not, of course, always available to go out on the road. So for a while, Tom was doing the vocals, and he kind of told me the similar thing. He says, "I'm not the greatest singer. I can handle it, but he says I'd much rather get up there and just play the guitar and have somebody else sing."
singing is stressful, especially when you're under a
Yeah.
microscope, being
Yeah.
in Faster Pussycat or LA Guns or whatever, and everyone's
Especially you got the
wanting
added
you to
pressure
fail.
of not just being the new singer, but these are high profile gigs. So like, like you got in the back of your mind, I better get every word of these songs right.
Yes. Yeah, playing guitar is easy. If you're sick, if you're not feeling good, you can still play guitar.
So I got to ask you, you mentioned Ace. Have you had a chance to check out the new album?
Yeah.
Loving
Sounds
it.
like Ace. Sounds like, it's 79 Ace album.
I mean, it's
It's
amazing. It just went number one. I mean, finally, congrats, Ace, on that.
yeah, it's really cool to see they're promoting it and
Yeah.
they're working their ass off on it. It's great.
So Tom, I'm sure you have a few more questions for Kurt. I'll let you take it.
Oh, absolutely. So I listened to your solo album and I love the punk sound of it. I love the sound of your guitar. Actually, when you talk about the Ramones, well, Ross the Boss from the Dictators, Ross and I are like best friends. I don't know if you know who Ross is. Ross is a guitar player with the Dictators and Man of War. And he
Yeah.
was best friends with Joey Ramone. Actually, Joey played in a video with Ross back in
Oh,
back
yeah.
in the 70s. Yeah, so they were good friends. But I really enjoyed your guitar sound. And it's similar. So did you play guitar on the LA Guns album too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I could feel the tone of it. I
Yeah.
saw. So what were you using that? Les Paul. What were you using to get that tone?
Les Pauls and Marshalls.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, Les Paul. Great
And
tone on there.
yeah,
But,
and while I'm away, actually played all the leads on that song on While I'm Away.
oh, really? Nice, nice. What I really thought was cool too. I loved songs like at the end of the song you had like you would go in there, you had these little quick stops in there, and I loved that. And then all of a sudden the song would take off. To me, that's like the coolest thing. That da 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 down da da.
Yeah, let it breathe a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So many players don't do that. And they just, they just got to think, they got to fill it in. It was just a really cool feel to what you were doing. So what that vibe, that was like your punk vibe. Is that where you came up with that from?
I played with some different drummers that I've played with a lot of different guys like you have. And I learned shit from everybody, whether it's Marky Ramone or whether it's guys I played,
Sure.
toured in cover bands with or whatever. And it's like some guys would be like, you gotta let it breathe, man. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pile through everything. I'm just like, that's cool that, And my first thing I studied as a musician was drums. I took drum lessons. So I'm as a rhythm player, I'm very percussive, I think.
Yeah. You know what's interesting
So
about that? A lot of great singers or drummers. I mean, Janie Lane, Steven Tyler of Aerosmith started out as drummers. Even look at somebody like Phil Collins. I mean, not only is he a great drummer, but he can sing lead and every. I don't think he can play the drums anymore because he's really kind of beaten up for playing all these years. But he can still sing, and it's just amazing. A lot of great singers start out as drummers.
I think it really taught me, like, obviously rhythms and the value of rhythm and the tightness and the, breaking stuff down like that rhythmically. So I definitely learned a lot from it.
And a little more about the Dark Horse. I mean, it just was released digitally. Are there plans? Because I would love to get a physical copy of it.
Yes, vinyl and CDs are on the way. So I don't have a specific date. They
Oh,
haven't told me, but
just so people know it's on the way. And well, hopefully that you guys can still go out and tour from time to time, because it'd be a waste to put out a great new album like that and not really get the chance to promote it. And I imagine the hard thing then is you got 2 albums worth of material, so that must be a hard thing when coming off with a set list.
we want to go play this stuff. We do, so we're not saying no to anything at the same time. We're
You're
just
being
taking
honest
it.
with people. Yeah, taking a day
We're
at a
just
time.
taking it day by day, and we're not. People call it stuff a money grab, but you guys know it's
Yeah.
to go out there and do it. It's not a money. This day and age, it's not a money
if that
grab.
was the case, you'd probably be booking the tour right now. As we sit here and speak. And, oh yeah, we got dates already booked, but that's not the case. And so we do understand that. Now, I gotta say the artwork. I love the artwork on the new album. Who did that?
Kelly Nichols.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep, Kelly's done all the artwork on the 2 Riley's LA Gums albums we've done, and he did the artwork on my new album, 1977 album.
Oh, amazing.
He is a talent, man. He has an eye for coolness, man.
Yeah. A song that I love that LA Guns did years ago, I think it was off of Vicious Circle. Kelly sings Nothing Better to Do. I mean, his vocals on that, man, it's real Ramonish itself.
Yep.
Yeah.
He comes from that same school, man. He loves the Sex Pistols. Him and I, love the Sex Pistols. So.
And I got to ask, LA Guns. I mean, the band's got this weird history with the two LA Guns, and we don't need to get into that because everybody knows that history. But my question is, like, a lot of fans like myself is like, call it LA Guns because it's got that history, and so like they know if they go see your band, you're going to throw in a couple classic songs, like Ballad of Jane or Never Enough or Rip and Tear. And to me, it's still LA Guns, if you know what I mean. You got the 2 versions of the band, but I think somehow if you're a fan, you really, I mean, I like both bands, if basically what I'm saying. I think, if it's a good song, it's a good song.
That's exactly what I think. And we want our own identity. We're not trying to go out there and be a nostalgia band. So.
Because you don't want to be a nostalgia act, but then, a certain percentage of audience going to want to hear those songs. And so I think for Riley's LA Guns, the hardest thing is, okay, we want our own identity, but then we do have this history. So we don't want to look like we're throwing the history away, but yet you have 2 albums worth of great material. So that must be really hard.
It's still Riley's LA Guns.
Yeah, I get
people like you say, people want to hear the Ballad of Jane. People want to hear Never Enough or Over the Edge and
interestingly enough, like I said, like I think what's interesting in your case, Kurt, is because maybe you guys were all friends, in Riley's LA Guns. It didn't seem like when you joined the band, you had the added pressure of having to sound like Phil Lewis. You just came in and did your thing, and it seemed like the fans were pretty accepting.
Well, the phone calls I had with Steve before, it's like, I don't sing like Phil.
Yeah.
I'm not like, he has a higher voice than me. I don't sing. I don't pound in a high register.
You have the ability to sing those classic songs, not the way Phil Lewis did, but in your own way. And it's still, like, sounds like the classic song, if you know what I mean.
I appreciate it because, I'm a fan too. So I want them to be the way I sing things. I want them to be recognizable of how the songs were written. And that's why they're great songs. So, I'm not going to come in and change it and be like, hey, they should be like this. But I appreciate it.
The Dark Horse, I was curious. The songs that are on the album, were there any songs written that got left off or didn't make it to the album?
Hmm.
That's
We
interesting.
have more material just sitting.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
That's always good. Yeah.
and Steve always said, even after the first album, don't worry, we'll put it on the second album. And I was like, we're gonna do a second album.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sure enough, we did.
And now let me ask you about your solo album coming up, because I imagine right now that's kind of going to be the focus. June's right around the corner. I'm sure you're going to go out tour behind that. Now the question is, are you going to get a solo band, like a set band, or are you going to have different guys come out play?
I haven't really crossed that bridge yet, but
Thought about
I'd
it.
like
Yeah.
to go out and do some, I'd like to go out and do some shows. And, you know, it's, I just love playing original music. I've played covers a lot of my life too, to make money and to make a career of what I've done. But I've also been in original bands too. And so there's
Hey
nothing like
Tom,
going
hey
out and
Tom,
playing material.
check out those guitars he has behind him. That's pretty cool. I mean,
I'm loving
um,
it. Loving it.
yeah.
I got
Absolutely.
this is an old, hold on here. You might appreciate this. Let me take these out. This is my old, this is from like 80, I don't know, it's an old original
Oh, Jackson.
American
Yeah.
Jackson Dinky
Yep.
Strat.
Wow, loving that.
But it's pretty cool, man. Like this is when I was a kid, I got this. So this is an OG, this one with an old original Floyd Rose on it.
I tell you, take care
Awesome.
of your stuff, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Well, I can't believe, guys, it's time to start wrapping it up. But Kurt, I got to tell you, it was really a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you. And I just want to say, once the solo album is released, Tom and I would like to have you come back and really heavily promote that, and maybe do like a live on the air track review of the album.
That sounds great, man.
So let's
Hey,
keep in touch, and you let and when the album's ready to be released, we'll get it set up, okay? And good luck.
Thanks, Jay and Tom. I appreciate you guys.
thank you. And hey, my buddy Carl Kennedy from the Rods just texted me and said, "Tell you hello." He says
Oh,
he
cool,
knows
man.
Rods. He played with me for a while. Carl did. Great guy.
Great.
I want to tell you hello. So
Okay, Kurt, thanks again. We'll be in touch, and I'll let you know when the interview gets posted, and you can feel free to share it, okay?
Absolutely.
Take care. Bye bye.
take care, man.
Appreciate it, guys.